Have you ever seen people debating whether orcas are dolphins or whales? Or maybe a debate on what is a whale and what is a dolphin in general? Well, I sure have. Multiple times, across multiple years, decade even. It's one of the classics in terms of a dispute about animals by the general public. Well, let me introduce a third axis to the dispute, because why not? These creatures, called beaked whale, should be obvious because it's written in the title of this video. But still, what about them that makes it worthy as the third axis to the discussion? What exactly makes them different? Well, let me bring up the question. What exactly is beaked whale? As with other whales or dolphins, beaked whales are cetacean. Some people call this whole group whale, but I personally like to call them cetacean, just not to be ambiguous. Talking about Cetacea as a clade could be tricky because, traditionally, they are placed as an order under the Mammalia class, but nowadays, they are usually grouped together with artiodactyls in an order called Cetartiodactyla, or simply Artiodactyla. If so, then Cetacea can be a suborder or infraorder, depends on who you ask. Cetacean can be divided into two groups, baleen cetacean aka Mysticeti, and the other one is tooth cetacean aka Odontoceti. Oh, by the way, some people call these baleen whales and tooth whales, but again, I prefer to call them this way. Beak whales have teeth, hence they are classified within Odontoceti. In that way, they are closely related to dolphins, but not exactly. You see, Odontoceti have four major groups, which are the sperm whales, the quote-unquote true dolphins, the South Asian river dolphins, and the beaked whales. Oh, by the way, while we are on this scene, orcas also belong with the true dolphins. And yeah, orcas are, quite literally, dolphin. Anyway, while sperm whales and true dolphins have multiple families, beaked whales are all classified within a single family, which is Ziphidae. 6 extant genera and 24 extant species are recognized, but there might be even more. They can be found throughout the world. However, they are often coined the least known mammal group because the population size is relatively small and all of them reside in deep water most of the time. Hence, they are rarely observable. In fact, one of the most well-known beaked whale, Ziphius, was first discovered as a skull specimen. Cuvier thought it was a fossil, but several decades later, we found out it's actually an extant animal. Oh, speaking of Ziphius, naturally, that is where the family name comes from. Technically though, it should be Hipperodontidae because Hipperodon was scientifically named first. However, Ziphidae has been commonly used as the family name for at least a century, hence why Ziphidae is usually considered valid. Oh, and also, speaking of Ziphius, some of you might have heard of the name before even though you might not know about beaked whale. That's because it's actually a name of a northern sea monster. Some tell the tale of Ziphius as a whale with owl face or something like that. I'm not exactly sure whether this monster is actually based on the beaked whale or not. It honestly might be considering how people depict whales in old arts, but at the very least, they have the same name because the name itself comes from Xiphos, which is a Greek word for sword. Notice how both the sea monster and beaked whale have elongated snout. You see the vision? But anyway, looking back at this image that I showed earlier, some of you might think, they kinda look similar to dolphins, but not exactly. Well, don't worry. Let me make it obvious in the morphology section. But before that, beaked whales are moderate in size, ranging from 4 meters long, but the largest species, Berardius bairdi, is actually the second largest toothed cetacean, with maximum length of 13 meters. Sperm whale is the biggest toothed cetacean, by the way. Just like most whales and dolphins, their body is fusiform and streamlined. What makes them similar to most whales is their dorsal fin, which is located towards the posterior and is relatively small. Unlike most whales though, they have beak, this elongated rostrum, just like most dolphins. What's actually unique about them is their dentition. Most of them, aside from one species, only have one or two pair of teeth. In most of them, these teeth are tusk-like. Not only that, females typically don't have these teeth, or at least the teeth stay inside the gum, not erupted. I say typically because in some species, i.e. Berardius arnuxi and Berardius beardi, females' teeth also erupted. Meanwhile, Tasmacetus shepherdi have full set of teeth, just like other odontoceti. Still, males of this species have a pair of tusk-like teeth at the tip of their mandible. While we don't know for sure about the usage of these tusk-like teeth, the general consensus is they are secondary sexual trait, just like the antler of male deer. Males might use their tusk-like teeth to fight each other for females, or maybe as simple as displaying the teeth to attract female. Like I said, we're not exactly sure. Looking at this poster again, you might think all of them look kinda similar. And you're kinda right honestly. One of the ways to identify them is by looking at their coloration, which honestly is not easy to do in the wild, especially considering they only surface for a moment. You could take a closer look at their head. Some of them have bigger melon than the other. And in case you didn't know, yes, the bulge on their forehead is called melon, same as the one in dolphins and other toothed cetaceans. Most of them are found beach, or in some cases, only their remnants were found. In that case, you could identify them by looking at their teeth, just like how you can identify male deer by looking at their antlers. Each species has unique teeth shape and size. Some of them have a really big and white tusk like this one. Notice that the teeth also have small denticles on them. One of the most interesting looking dentition can be seen on the strap-toothed whale, Mesoplodon layardi. Their teeth curve upwards, locking their own jaw to some extent, just like a strap, hence the name. Some of you would think this could hinder them, and you are probably correct. At the very least, this does limit the gape size of males. But the question is that critical for their lifestyle? Well, let's talk about their ecology. Like I said earlier, beaked whales are deep diver. They typically dive deeper than 500 meters. The Cuvier's beaked whales have been recorded to dive to around 3,000 meters depth, maybe even more. That is the record for mammal, by the way, the deepest a mammal have ever been found. Not only the depth though, these species had been recorded to dive as long as 222 minutes, which is also record-breaking for mammal. They have several adaptations that enables them to dive deep for a prolonged time. One of the more noticeable adaptations is their enlarged spleens and livers compared to other cetaceans. It most likely helps in filtering blood. Why do they even need help in filtering blood, you might ask? Well, deep diving for a long time means not breathing for a long time. Anaerobic metabolism produces lactic acid, which could build up in the tissues and will be carried by blood. That's why they need a better blood filtering system, presumably at least. Their flippers are also relatively small, enabling them to stick their flippers onto their body to reduce drag. But of course, because they're a mammal, they need to resurface to breathe. While not exactly one-to-one, they typically stay near the surface longer after a long deep dive, coined inter-deep dive intervals in this publication. But now, the question is, why even bother diving so deep? Well, as I said multiple times already, we don't know for sure because we couldn't exactly observe them that much. The general consensus is they perform deep dives to forage. Stomach content analysis showed they mostly eat deepwater squid. However, they also eat benthic fishes and crustaceans, which means they forage near the seafloor. What's quite interesting about beaked whales is, unlike most toothed cetacean, they perform suction feeding instead of biting their prey. They have grooves in their throat that helps in doing this. That's also why it's relatively fine for the strap-toothed whale to have such a handicap, because they don't exactly need to open their mouth wide. And that's also why it's fine for them to only have one or two pairs of teeth, because they don't use it for feeding. What they presumably use it for is to fight between males. That's most likely why males typically have more scars on their body compared to females. That's also most likely why their tusks have denticles on it. Presumably, the one responsible for the scars of other males. That's a lot of presumably, I know. Like I said, we don't know much about them. At some point, we even considered them as the least known mammal group. Most of what we know about them is based on our observation on four species: Northern bottlenose whale, Plainville's beaked whale, Baird's beak whale, and Cuvier's beak whale. Some are known to travel on group consisting several females, juveniles, and one male. Meanwhile, some species are known to have male groups. Unfortunately, more often than not, we stumbled upon them in let's just say, unfortunate circumstances, either beach or caught in a troll net, which is of course pretty bad for them. Not only that though, sonars also affect them and might cause us panic, which causes rapid ascent, which then causes decompression sickness, which could be fatal. Like I said multiple times already, we don't know much about them. Hence, we also couldn't exactly assess their conservation status, for most species at least. As our knowledge and technology advance, we most likely will have more way to observe and study them. Or maybe we'll simply get lucky and observe something we didn't know about them by chance. For now, let's just learn what is known. And that's all for now. Oh, by the way, bottlenose whales are beak whale, while bottlenose dolphins are dolphin. Those are different groups of animals. Keep in mind when you are talking or reading about it. Anyway, enjoy your day.